Number
I think we have 1
5.
through 5.
Sweet.
So the title of this panel is Music, Entrepreneurship, and Badassery. And we have 4 fabulous people who are musicians and entrepreneurs and badasses. And
I'd say 5.
Yeah,
And-
that's right. Yeah.
and 5. I will be moderating today. Moderating. Wow, that sounds really like bad. Facilitating. So I would just want to give a brief introduction for each of these folks, and then they'll share a little bit more about how they are making their living doing music in really creative and beautiful ways. Right here is RyanNicole, who some of you already met. And RyanNicole, yes. RyanNicole calls herself 4A because she is an artist, an activist, an athlete, and wait for
Asshole.
it.
No, okay.
And an activist. I got the 4th one. And an activist. And combines all 4 of those really beautifully in her work. And you will see Ryan perform tonight at the show. RyanNicole, yay. And then this is Moorea Dickason, who is, you met her this morning because she's the Associate Director of Women's Acapella Association. And she is also a professional singer. She has a band called Raise the Maze. She was in a band called Motar that recently folded. It was a really staple art rock band within the Bay Area, around for 10 years and doing amazing work. And she's also a session singer and a music producer, has a home studio, private instructor, all that. That's Moorea. And then this is Cynthia Lynn, who is a singer-songwriter. She plays ukulele and is a YouTuber and also teaching workshops and traveling around and doing fabulous stuff. And that's Cynthia, woo! And then all the way at the end is B. Steadwell, who is also a singer-songwriter and loop pedal artist. So you can check out B's videos. She's doing solo work on the loop pedal and touring with that. And also recently wrote and directed a Black queer musical called Letter to My Ex. And it was performed in DC, and it's going to be performed in Oakland, a new cast, right, in April. And we should all go out and support B. And so this is B, and this is Cynthia and Moorea and Ryan, and they're so amazing. Woo! So I want to kind of tie this first question into you maybe saying a little bit more about what you do in your work. And the question is, did you intentionally set out to become an entrepreneur and or an independent artist, or did it just happen? And if you can discuss how you came to make your living in this way, how you do make your living in this way, sort of all the, I know all 4 of you are wearing a lot of different hats in your life. And if you can talk about any creative or unconventional ways that you've made your living and how this has all kind of come to be. I know it's a lot of pieces to that, but just sort of, free flow with it. And whoever wants to start, we can just popcorn style.
Oh, good. Well, I put my mic here, so here we are. Yeah. First of all, thank you. Thank you to this panel. Thank you guys for sitting and eating lunch and listening. Yeah, I did not set out to do this. I went to school for law. Yeah. Went to school for law. Did some time doing public policy for a while. Really, what I realized while I was doing public policy was I felt really removed from the issues that we were working on. And I moved back to Oakland after I went to school, primarily because I felt like there was like a whole group of young people that were missing. Like there was this generation of folks that were missing in my town. I'm from Oakland. Something between 22 and maybe 34. It was just like a population dearth. And mainly, I assumed it was because a lot of those folks would go off to college, and then they would stay wherever they were. So I just felt like we were having a lot of our talent plucked out of this city, and it resulted in death and dismay and what have you, poverty and whatever. And so I made a point to come back here. I came back here with the intent to practice law, doing public policy, and then just felt really removed from the community that I was trying to impact. And so started working, I was like volunteering in youth nonprofits, and then very quickly moved to run a nonprofit for young music artists. And while I was sitting, like writing grants and, you know, putting out fires and running the program and spinning all the plates that you have to spin as a nonprofit director, I realized, like, one, that's not my passion. Two, the young people and the people that I wanted to speak to at 25 needed to hear me. They didn't need me, like, writing grants and sitting behind a desk. And so I was moonlighting the whole time as a spoken word artist. I was like going out to decompress as an actress. All my work is intent upon uplifting the people. And then, you know, I would come back in the day and I would hear all my young people talk about how they didn't feel represented in media. And so I was like, well, damn, you know, I'm one of them and I've got something to say. And, you know, I'm exactly that population of people that needs to kind of be there. It's time to transition. And so I transitioned. I transitioned both willingly, like I put it out in the universe, but my nonprofit essentially folded. The initial director spread us too thin. I was young, trying to run an organization as a young black woman was really challenging, had a really hard time gaining respect and all of that, but also just funding nonprofits is a bitch. And so, yeah, I was not an ED anymore and had to figure out what it was I was going to do. With all my institutional knowledge, began to consult, build relationship with organizations, and then just did my art on the side, had a lot of free time. And now I'm like 90-10 artist, 10% consultant, and it is a wonderful switch. It's wonderful. So that's like the quick and dirty of how I got to where I got to. I'm making money. Really, I think my real profession is spinning plates or juggling. Like, that's really what I'm really good at. And, you know, it just happens to manifest itself as artistry and acting and athleticism and what have you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ryan. Yay, that's so cool.
Well, I'm next in the line, so I'll go. There's so many similarities. I also came from the nonprofit sector before moving into full-time music work, and I'm 90-10. I also did not intentionally set out to be a full-time artist and working in music. I think I would have loved to, and that was my intention. I did go to school for music in college, and I would have loved to, but I got a lot of feedback as a young person that, especially here in the Bay Area, it's so expensive, and there's just there's no way to make a living at it unless you become like a famous musician or something. And so I just had that feedback really young, and so I just kind of instantly went and got jobs and made sure that I was always hustling and making enough money just to survive here. And would have different amounts of my time in life, always making music and creating music. And part of that process was awesome too, like having jobs that paid my bills, and then the only music and art that I did was stuff that I really wanted to do and never had to do any music or artwork that was just for money. There's a nice way about that as well. Yeah. But over time, just as I got older, and the more I wanted to shed the things that weren't fully serving me and that didn't feel like were utilizing the all that I had to give. And really that ends up coming from music for the most part. So after years also in nonprofits, I slowly, over a couple of years, just dropped my hours. And I did stay on as a consultant still and do a little bit here and there, but now mostly I'm full-time music, which looks like a million different things. For me, in my life, I have a Patreon page and make a music video every 2 weeks, and I've done that for 2.5 years. I do have a home studio, and over time taught myself how to engineer, mostly because I had so many shit experiences in studios working with engineers that I hated. And I was like, I just need to learn how to do this myself. And so did, and love it, and get to engineer for other people, and find myself doing it predominantly for women, and just having a space that's cool and exactly what I would want it
Where's
to
your
be.
studio?
In my house. It's called Raise the May Studios. It's just,
Like here?
come on by.
East
Yeah,
Bay?
Richmond. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I do that. I do a lot of studio session work as a singer for lots of different kinds of clients. And I sing in a vocal group called Hive, which is performing tonight. And I do sing in a new project, which isn't out yet, but it's called Raise the May. It's kind of replacing my last project with kind of like avant-garde rock, which is definitely my passion project. But I'm convinced it's going to totally make me $1 million someday. We'll see. You don't need everyone to like stuff, just a couple people. And I don't know. I feel like and I do a lot of coaching of vocalists, which I love. I love it. When I was in college, one of my professors had said, the second you get out of here, start teaching, because there's somebody, like, more than someone, and just start doing it. It helps with your artistry, too, to remember the growing process and to be in that supportive role and always kind of remaining in that growth spirit, And so I have been doing it almost ever since, with a couple breaks, and I love it. I love working with other singers, and I'm really sensitive to keeping the amount I teach, like the ratio, definitely no more than 50% of the kind of work time, so that I stay fresh and enjoy it and not start to get stale with coaching singers. But that's another thing I do. And I run a vocal program at a rock band school over in Moorea. That's fun, and lots of stuff. It does take a lot, like that messaging I got about being able to be a full-time musician in the Bay Area. Wasn't wrong that it takes a lot and is hard, but it's definitely doable. But it looks like a lot of different things for me. But that also works really well for me. I like a really diverse day and week in life. There's no 2 days that look the same. And for me and my personality, that works really well. So that's me today, anyway.
And Moorea is doing some solo singing coaching this afternoon. I think there's some signups still available. So yeah, get in on that.
Yay! Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Cool. Aloha, everyone. I'm Cynthia Lynn, and I feel like we're all sisters up here in terms of that similar experience of just like you want to figure out how to be happy, right? And how to maximize the expression of yourself, and you are just trying all these different outlets to find it, And I mean, I think the people that make it are the ones that just keep trying, like, okay, I'm gonna do this and this and this and this, and like only 1 of 10 things will work, but you just keep trying new things, you keep going with that thing, and then you just keep expanding. So I actually, when I was in college, I was an economics major, which didn't really mean that much because I didn't, I picked it because it was the major where I could do the least amount of work and yet still pass and spend most of my time doing a cappella, musical theater, and dance. And so, but somehow when I graduated, I didn't think I could do any of those things for a living, so I got a job in tech. So I worked in tech for 1 year and was like, tech is like chill, and you get snacks, and like everybody is like, it seems very laid back, but you are still in a cubicle inside a building for like 10 hours a day, and for, I think, people like us, that can kill you, it'll just kill your soul. So after a little more than a year, I got up the courage to quit, and it really did take me a very long time to be like, I'm gonna quit, oh my God. And it's like, yeah, you're just like, how do I do it? How do I tell my parents, like, I got this degree and I'm gonna quit my job and all that kind of stuff? I had to pay student loans. But the moment I decided to quit, like I told my boss I was quitting, I felt like this huge weight lift off of me. And ever since, I've just been kind of hustling to figure out what comes next. So I've done vocal coaching, and definitely true that I think if you love to teach, or if you are interested in sharing what you know, there's always somebody who can benefit from it. And it's a great side career for anybody who wants to be an artist. I also tutored for the SATs. I went to acting school for a bit, and I did the kind of work that actors do, like You can be a standardized patient, like you be a pretend patient for medical school students. You know, stuff like that. There's like lots of random jobs that are actually quite interesting and fun to as a way to get by, but you have to be determined to go find those jobs to make your way through. And so I had started writing songs in college. I kind of picked that up again, and while I was acting, I decided to like go back and play in cafes and stuff, and then that kind of just became my focus. It just seemed that that was the most rewarding thing for me. I could sit in the corner in a cafe and play my music, and even if there was nobody there, I would still feel really happy about it. And so I made a record with a producer. I made, which was really hard because hearing yourself on record is like the hardest thing. You're like, that's not me. Why does that sound so weird? And then the next record I made with a producer, but then the third record I made on my own because I was just determined to learn what that process was, so similar to what Moorea went through. I moved from New York to the Bay Area in 2010. And when I got here, I was also a letterpress printer, another side job that I picked up. And I like print my own CD cases. You know, that was like a big deal to me to like make my own artwork. And then I started teaching ukulele here in the Bay Area, and that just really took off. I danced hula back when I lived in Chicago when I was growing up. And so when I got here, I kind of like, I don't know, there's like a lot of Hawaiian vibe in the Bay Area, so I kind of reconnected with that and started teaching ukulele here. And then I started teaching on YouTube because my students, well, I'm here today because of Ukulele, who taught at OSA. Anybody know Ukulele? Yeah! Mr. San Jose, oh, that's right. I'm kind of an accidental YouTuber. My YouTube channel now has over 250,000 subscribers. And I also have a Patreon, and I have about 2,800 people on my Patreon. And so that is the way that I make my living now, but it definitely it was like a 15-year journey to get there. That in I don't know, the past 5 years of teaching, I've been posting my videos, I've been building my community and learning how to essentially get people to pay attention to the art that you're making. And a lot of it has to do with just giving it away. You know, that like you create it because you love it, and then you have to just be willing to share it. And there's a theory about having 1,000 true fans. Have you guys heard about that? Yeah, that Patreon is just one subscriber model, but basically if you can get 1,000 people to give you, say, like $100 a year, right, to do what you do, then you have $100,000, and that's a lot of money. You can make a lot of art with that money. So I've basically tapped into this community that loves ukulele. I happen to really love teaching. Sharing ukulele videos gave me a chance to share both my teaching and my artistry. And then I released an ukulele record in 2017. And just through my fan base alone, like I'm totally independent artist. I even released it only as a digital release because I didn't think it would go anywhere. My fans bought the album so much that it hit the Billboard charts. Like, I had no idea it was going to happen. I literally just made it a digital release. And so that was just a sign that, like, the more you can build your community and motivate people around it, whatever it is, you know, that thing that you care the most about, my mantra is follow your passion. You know, I just try to keep perpetuating that also through the people that I'm teaching, you know, that you are learning because it is giving you creative empowerment, you know, that it's good for your brain and it's good for your soul to play music, to learn music. So I'm just riding that wave as much as I can and keeping the aloha vibes going.
I think I spent a lot of my life sort of giving myself permission to be an artist, and it took a long time. I always loved music. I always loved singing, writing. But yeah, I think we all sort of had this idea that like it's just not practical as a job. So I went to Oberlin College for undergrad, and that school has a conservatory. And it was a very specific kind of musician. It was people who've been going to school for music mostly for their whole lives. And I didn't do any music in college because it was such a vibe of like, well, you can do music when you know these things, when you can read music, when you know how to play an instrument, and blah blah blah. And so it was really intimidating, and I didn't really write or sing very much. And then after college, I started a rap duo, sort of a queer, goofy rap duo, for fun and like to meet girls, and I don't know, right? And it didn't work, but but it was fun. And we started sort of getting a little bit of, like we got some college gigs. People were actually listening to us, which surprised us. And the person I was in the duo with sort of got a real job, and I started doing stuff solo, just on the side. And I went to get my MFA from Howard in film because I figured I could, I could get this piece of paper, I could learn more about film, and then be a professor. That was my plan, and I loved learning about film. I loved that art form, but when I graduated, I applied for a million jobs and didn't get any. And I was at that point, I was starting to do solo gigs, like as a soloist, as a solo singer-songwriter, and sort of out of necessity, I just started doing more because I didn't have a job. And that's how I ended up being full-time. It really wasn't a choice. I didn't think it was a good idea. Like it's not. It's really not a good idea. It's like the music industry is really, really crap. It's trash. But also, like slowly building, like from the days when we were in the rap duo and we were doing this goofy queer hip hop to, 5 and 6 years later, me doing stuff on my own. All that time I was building an audience, and it took a long time. I've been doing it for about 10 years, and probably the last 2 years were really, it was the first time that I felt solid, like financially, sort of like, and it's still scary because I don't get paid, we don't get paid from one person every certain amount of time. It's like you get a gig here, you get a gig there, you get a gig, and the numbers are different. But now it feels like I have enough gigs, it's consistent enough. Sometimes I get to say no to things. And it's like, and it's cool. So mostly I'm just I'm doing solo work, doing college gigs and different kinds of like queer events around the world, and now I'm also doing this musical, which is more of not out of necessity, because it's really actually so expensive to put on a theater piece, and if anything, I'm investing in myself with that, but because I need variety, and because sitting on a stage by myself and singing my songs is a blessing and amazing, but I needed some more. I needed like a community. I needed sort of a bigger story to tell, and so that's what I do now.
So next question, and feel free, we don't always have to go in order if you just feel like
Yes, we do.
And then you, and then you. What is your why? Like your big capital W why? For what purpose do you make? Did I do that right?
Yeah, you're awesome.
W? Yeah, why?
I always do that. I'm like, what? Who?
Capital W
H-O, who?
Y H-Y. Okay. For what purpose do you make art?
Well, can I say something about, I don't know, like, there are going to be a lot of reasons, but what my acting teacher said that has always resonated with me, and I still believe is true for every artist out there, is that you do it because you can't not do it. That basically your life would suck if you didn't do it, and so you have to do it, even though you won't get paid, even though you'll get beat down 9 times out of 10. You know, it's because you have to do it. So my acting teacher was like, if you can do anything else, go do something else, right? If you can, do. And so a musician friend that, like a musician that gigs with me, he asked me, he was like, well, I want to do it, but I want to do these other things. Like, I'm like, you know, if there's nothing that calls you to say, you have to do this, then you should just go do that other thing. You know, you'll probably find more success doing that other thing that's calling to you. So, I don't know, I'll just make that the first comment, is that I think that you just have to know that you can't not do it.
I have tried to not do it. Every time it bites me in the ass. I'm like, oh, what a waste of time that was. And it's not. I learned things each time. Actually, all the jobs that I've had, not in music, have really supported usually the business side of things in music, which is so helpful, you know, since I didn't get any of that in music school. I don't know why they don't teach that in music school, how to be an independent person, right? Yeah, totally. The biggest why is that it's the thing. It's the thing that needs to happen. For the most part, I don't know. I've had a lot of times where I tried. I'd feel that like selfish thing. That being an artist is selfish. Like I'm not really serving anybody enough. Especially going from the nonprofit sector, which felt very much like this job's whole purpose is serving
your
people.
whole life to everybody forever. Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm gonna go make music. But really, like in the times when I would go to do other things, and then the why would be punching me in the face, it would be like, no, it's so important. It's so important for society, and society does not always give us that feedback, especially here in this country. There are other countries that support art way more, and particularly financially, but it's a really important part of society, and I feel like something I remind myself, and it is helpful teaching because I find myself getting to say it to other people. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm reminding you and me. Especially now with such an intense climate, I mean, it's always, but right now with such an intense political climate, so much going on that needs so much support and help in technical ways, that like the heart of our society, it can come from art and music, and that connects us, something to sit in the dark and listen to and just feel and know that when someone else hears it, they're feeling these things too. And music reminds us of our shared humanity. And it reminds me of my shared humanity when I'm making it, and it's cheaper than therapy. Not that therapy it doesn't also happen, but you know. Anyway, it's a big part of the why.
Yeah, I think those things have to, and and I always come back to this moment I had when I was like 12, and I heard an Ani DeFranco song. And it was just like the first time that I heard a song that spoke to like my queerness, and I remember it so vividly, and I felt so seen, and like it just allowed me to feel and see music in a different way, and like I just want to give people that feeling, you know what I mean, like give like queer people that feeling, Black folks, women, like just feeling seen is such a special thing, and you do it for yourself. It's your own, like, I'm feeling my feelings and I'm working through them, but also like when you extend that out to people, it's like, it's the best thing. So that's my why.
Yeah. All those reasons for sure. I was just sitting here like, how can I say this and not sound like a jerk? I'm like, I do it for the people.
It's okay. You can embrace that other A.
That's the other A. It's my 5A. No, Real talk, though, I think ultimately, and I think I'm coming to this more, I think what I've always said is I do it for the people, and I believe that, and that is true. And I'm coming around to the fact that really I'm doing it because I need to give myself permission to do the thing that scares me. And music has always been this like huge, it's like there's God and there's music, and almost like they kind of live together. And, you know, it's my opportunity to like try to put myself in that space, in that very divine space. Music has always been massive and almost unattainable to me. And yet so many people do it, and so many people transcend when they do it, and they connect with other people. And, you know, for me, I think this will be my lifelong journey to see if I can transcend, if I can get myself to that place where I feel like I'm above the clouds. And, you know, hopefully people, I mean, I just know what music has done for me, so I know other people will go there with me throughout the creation of this music. But it's my permission to be a creator, to be like a mini God.
Amen.
It's my God complex. Yeah.
Awesome, y'all. Thank you. What are some obstacles that you faced? Being an independent artist or just making art in general, either like with yourself or with the world? And more importantly, how have you overcome them? Yeah.
I'll start with just saying that money has been one. And I think that's already come up. But when I very first started, right after school, I did some waitressing, but was really quickly like, I'm going to just do music full time, and started gigging a ton and taking like corporate gigs and things like that, and whatever I could do to make some money. And this is pre-Barack Obama, pre-Affordable Care Act, and I couldn't afford insurance, you know, and I got a minor thing, but that landed me in a hospital for one night, and it really wasn't that big of a deal, but it did require a hospital visit. And then it was just like, I need a damn job. You know, I needed a job for health insurance. So monetary things have jumped in the way, and then that shook my confidence. That took me on a 10-year journey of not being a musician full time. This moment, it was like a day, then totally changed my trajectory. It made me feel like I'm putting my parents in a liable position. If something happens to me and I have no insurance, like they'll give everything they have to save my life or something. You know what I mean? Like they told me that, though. Totally guilt tripped me into it too. They said, we will still have it, you need insurance. But anyway, like that was a huge obstacle at this one time, and it has been a really magical thing. I mean, it's a very like, you know, just brass tacks thing that has been amazing for me to be able to have you know, options for not being an employed person, and then the ramifications of that over time was my own internal obstacle of feeling like I just don't think I can make this. I don't know how to make it work, and then just fear of failure and fear of success and fear of everything. It's scary sometimes.
It's funny how those two are back to back: fear of failure and fear of success.
Yeah. The same thing. Then you got to maintain the success. What if the success then fails later? So, I mean, overall, really, fear is probably the biggest obstacle, and then having to face that shit all the time and constantly push it back and remember, you know. I don't know. How about you all? Fear, insurance?
Absolutely. Fear of insurance. No, absolutely. I think fear is my biggest obstacle. It really is. You know, as many of us are, we're called to this work, and fear mutes that call. You know, it is a divine calling, and so fear is like it mutes that call. It distorts it, and you know, it puts all the practical and logical things in your way, and all the things that make sense. And yet, you know, something always finds a way to remind you what it is that you're supposed to be doing. I think just last week I was telling my mom, well, maybe I need to go and do, and she was like, shut up. You know, I'm tired of hearing that. But yeah, you know, fighting that internal desire for pragmatism and, living in the Bay Area where, there aren't agents aplenty and, what have you. All those like real, tangible obstacles are real and true. And I'm called to do something greater, and I have to remind myself of that before and after all the fear, pipes up. My way of combating that is truly it's a spiritual practice. I wake up every morning and as best as I can be disciplined to pray, to quiet the noise. I was saying this last week on a panel. There's a quiet voice that tells you like the thing that you're supposed to do. Like, you've got a gift you're supposed to do, and that's like the quiet voice is just like that. And it never raises its voice, and it's like, and then everything else is like, hey, you got those bills to pay, and and hey, you're a girl, you can't do that, and whatever, and all the other things are extremely loud and boisterous, and that quiet voice stays consistent and quiet. And our job is to discipline ourselves to quiet those other voices. That small voice is never going to get any louder. It's our work to give space between the world and that quiet voice. And my practice is I wake up in the morning before the world impedes, because the world is lazy and it sleeps a lot. And so I wake up in the morning and I get into a quiet space and I practice and I meditate and I pray and I wait for that voice to tell me what my cue is for the day, what it is I'm supposed to be doing. And that little voice always keeps me on my path and always mitigates the fear, ultimately. That's...
Yeah, I think depression and anxiety, which are linked to fear.
Also linked to art.
Yes, yes. And insecurity are all in there. I mean, the money, I think, is at the top of the list, but which could be really connected with insecurity, because it's like, I just poured my heart out on stage, and like the split just worked out that I made $40. Right. That happened to me once. I was like, I went to Boston from DC and made $40, and I was like, are you kidding me? You know what I mean? Like, there are some really low days where you're like scream singing over the bar chatter. Like, it's like low days. And then on top of that, there's like always drinking, there's always like substances, you're staying up late, you have an inconsistent schedule. Like, not necessarily, but like that was my journey and is. And like part of my solution was I had to go sober. I had to be sober to be like, to combat depression, to combat anxiety, and to just have a better spiritual practice, to be able to hear the little whispery voice and it's, I mean, it's not for everybody, but like that really helped with all the anxiety and the depression that really just kind of like is so present in like a full-time artist's life, I think.
Yeah, just one more thing to add. I mean, all those things are, I think we all resonate with all of those things.
Yeah. We're just up here like,
Yeah, like, yes. Yeah, that bar gig where you're just trying to be heard. Right. Oh my gosh. One last thing to add on that is, I would say maybe the obstacle of balance, of trying to pursue the artistic career while not ostracizing everybody and everything around you because you're so focused on it. I mean, one instance in particular, like I've been with my partner for 14 years. This was maybe like 6 or 7 years ago. Like, he has dealt with me being a struggling musician who has had like no money for a very long time. And he was like, how are you going to pay for that record? I'm like, I don't know, I'm just going to figure it out. Or I'm going to make the record and then we'll see. Yeah. And then he was like, you should think about it. Maybe you should do like crowdfunding or something. And I was like, oh yeah, maybe I should. And there have been more intense fights around that. He's a patient person, but still, that for us to build a life together, right? I mean, there are going to be people who you want to be in a relationship with who are going to be like, but how are you paying your bills, right? Or like, or your family, or just people around you who are going to have trouble taking you seriously because you are, I don't know, maybe so blinded with your art that you don't realize that there's like lots of other life things to take care of. I mean, I think it's good to have people around you. It's great to have artist role models around you who tell you to try things, to look for side gigs that can make you happy, but and teach you something, but definitely still pay you. Just I think look for older, wiser artists who can slap some sense into you sometimes.
Thanks, y'all. This is like wisdom. Can we just get some like snaps for the wisdom? And yeah, so beautiful, everything that you all just shared. There's a Theodore Roosevelt quote that comparison is the thief of joy. As an artist, I struggle a lot with this one, and I talking to other artists, I know it's not necessarily universal, but very common to when we're in creation mode, or even just, watching somebody else's show or whatever it may be, seeing other people's success, and constantly, a lot of us get stuck in comparative thinking. So my question for you is, do you find that comparative thinking is helpful or harmful? And if you find that it's harmful, like what are some ways that you kind of tap back into your authenticity and knowing what you have to offer and sort of that? I stumped them.
I mean, I'll say that obviously there's an aspect of comparative thinking that is horrible and can be debilitating and really painful, But one of the things that I do really regularly with my private students is, especially like if you do one of the master classes, standing up and singing in front of people and going through the process, like training the brain to go through the process of the question is to answer in the mind when watching another artist is, what do I like about that? And what I want to take from that and put into what I'm doing. As opposed to what sucks about that, which I think, I don't know, that is also a way we could react to watching a performance. Or that's amazing, and that means that I'm not amazing. Like these are the things that can happen. So literally going through a training process of, it's not comparison as in they're this, so I'm that, but they're this, and I love that, and I want to make sure that I can like integrate that or enjoy that or celebrate that. And I think just working on doing that, it's obviously a practice and thing to work on, especially in the arts. But there's no, to remind ourselves, there's no one thing that's the thing that's great in music and art. There should be all of the things, and we need all of the things. And so, I don't know, comparison, it's all the things too.
I was just talking to Solace in backstage about this as it pertains to freestyling, and how I think a lot of us get caught up in, like, certainly, when I started freestyling, started rhyming, period, like watching the cypher, watching people rap, and mostly guys rap, and being like, oh man, I can't do that. Like, I can't get in there. I can't get in there because I have ovaries, and I can't get in there, and that's why I can't do this thing. Like, but what I've been learning in this last several years, but really in the last couple of years, watching the industry and watching people that I know succeed in the industry, is that like authenticity is really, really desired right now, and really it's like the balm that is saving the world. And authenticity doesn't sound like everything else. Like, it sounds totally different. And so what in watching and I think where that comparison might take me down a horrible rabbit hole, what I've learned is like, oh, actually this is really affirming, seeing somebody else do something in their authentic voice, it be completely different than everything else that's already out there, is an affirming presence that reminds me, oh, I can do that too. I can go out there and be myself. It might not yield the same kind of success, but at least I know that I'm going out there and I'm doing me, and I'm not compromising. Comparison leads to compromise, leads to stealing your joy. So I'm not compromising myself. I get to be authentic. And so, yeah, I think comparison, at least in the last couple of years for me, has led to really affirming and positive thoughts. I see, David, who's the homie, and I'm like, wow, David's doing him, and he's winning. That's outstanding. And that means there's space for me to do me and win as well. Yeah.
I think sometimes the comparative thinking comes from a place of like lack and limitation, that there's not enough success for everybody. And so that's a really good place to come from, where it's like they can be so fabulous and so can I. There's room for all.
There's abundance. There's abundance out there. Yeah.
Along the same lines as Ryan, like I think maybe there's a moment for every artist when you realize, oh, the thing I'm doing is actually special to me, right? That like the more I can carve out the thing that I can do that nobody else can do. It's like I can't do exactly what that person is doing. I never could, right? But the more you kind of carve out what it is that you get to do, you get to share, that's completely different, or maybe not completely different. It's just nuanced enough that it is specifically you, authentic to you. That's when you start embracing everybody else's authenticity too, right? And then you want to promote everybody's artistry, because like everybody has something special to offer. My first acting gig, I was in a regional theater production with a bunch of Broadway people, and so I was totally intimidated by these like Broadway stars. And my assumption was that like I was like 23. My assumption was that they could all do everything, and that I could only just be a chorus member, right? And just like aspire to what they do. But when I told them that I had a cafe gig where I was doing singer-songwriter stuff, like one of these Broadway stars said like, "Oh, I could never do that." Yeah. Right? And that was the moment I was like, what? Yeah, of course you could. You've sung like The King and I in front of like 1,000 people or whatever, or 10,000, whatever. So, yeah, I think like you just have a wake-up moment of like, oh, okay, just like let me continue being true to myself and just keep fighting through that.
Yeah, this is my favorite question, I think, because it's like it's the hardest thing, and especially as like a vocalist. I don't know about y'all, but being like growing up, being a black girl who has like a very understated voice, it was like no one ever was like, you got it, you got what it takes. Like I wasn't doing runs, I wasn't belting, and I never maybe will in that way. In that American Idol kind of way, but it was so easy to just like look at other singers and just be like, damn, I can never do that. I wish I could do that. And I still have those thoughts, but it's like now it is like that, like appreciating my own vibes and looking at a singer like that and being like, oof, that is so gorgeous, and I love that, and my thing is really beautiful too, and I'm gonna do my thing. But I still have those moments on Instagram. Like I had one today where I looked at it, and it was a peer of mine, a friend of mine, who's playing this venue that I love, and it's their name on the thing, the marquee, and just envy, just like pew. And I know it's silly, and I know it's kind of irrational. And it doesn't mean anything about me, but sometimes because the music industry is so weird, and like people who are insincere are getting these, opportunities, and it's not about you, but that feeling is really hard to quell, and just like, because it's ego in the end, you're like, I deserve that, and it's just like, well, you're gonna get what you get, and this person is gonna get what they get, but that's one I struggle with.
Oh, yes. I think we have time for one more question. No, I won't. I know. We gotta like, yeah. How many of you out here are aspiring artists in some way? Or current artists? Yeah, beautiful.
Woo!
How many of you are like maybe not, but you are just like really soaking this stuff up because it's like life wisdom? Okay, excellent. That's what I thought. What advice do you all have for artists and or entrepreneurs who are just starting out or who are in the thick of? I mean, I'm like soaking up so much stuff, and I'm all up in my career. I think we're learning a lot from each other. Just if you had like one parting word for our last 5 minutes, what are your parting like words of advice and encouragement?
I've said this and I'll continue to say it. Do it. Like the Nike statement, like just do it. If you're like thinking about it, if it's waking you up at 4 in, if you're doing it in the shower, in the car, whatever, like just get out there, give it a go, try it, get it out of your body, get it out of your system. I really encourage folks. I think, certainly sitting in spaces where women are, where young people are, we do so much like commiserating over whether or not we should give it a go because ... And I absolutely encourage you, waste no more time. Give it a go. Try it in the way that is real for you with whatever resources that you have to bear. Just make it happen, man. Don't wait anymore.
I'm going to just say yes to that. Same thing. And I'll add to it, watch less TV and be on social media less. And like if you're going to do the thing, I mean, it's the little things that get in the way that feel like there's not enough time in the day. There's so much time in a day. There's always time. And it's just about what we prioritize and what we want to look back at, what's important. I mean, I'm saying this to myself too, spend less time on social media, but just more time in the actual thing. I think it's Elizabeth Gilbert in that TED Talk she does on art and creativity. She says, talking about the thing isn't the thing, thinking about the thing isn't the thing, doing the thing is the thing. Like you have to just do the actual thing. Work on writing the song, learning how to play your instrument better, practicing singing, working on your website and building your community and all the things, and then reach out and build community. Reach out to any of us and just connect. And I'm so happy you're all here. It's so nice to be here and just be in a space where this is the conversation also. Yes. And to keep having those conversations and to encourage other artists and support other artists and just continue to like make art and music an important part of our culture. And I'll stop there.
Yeah. That was a lot of things. Yeah. I'd say number one thing that artists tend not to do that I would advise them to do, promote yourself. It is really hard. It's really hard. And Amanda Palmer has a TED Talk on the art of asking, that you can go to people, to fans, to your community, to strangers, and say, hey, here's this thing that I love to do. Will you support me? It seems like the hardest thing in the world to do to get over that hump of just giving yourself permission to share that thing that you love. And that's what I learned in doing my first Kickstarter, that I was terrified of asking people for money. And in the end, you're not actually asking them for money. That's what they're giving you. But you're just asking them for your support. You're like putting your shit out there and saying, like, please, like, do you support what I do? Because I love what I do, and I really, really would love for you to love what I do. So you have to be willing to do that first, right? First, you have to do all the things in terms of actually working on yourself, right? And like getting to that, doing it, working, building your community. But then you actually have to put yourself out there and say, hey, this is the thing that I love to do. Please support what I do. So, when you're starting out, all you do is like, you keep messaging your friends. You're like, come to my show. Hey, can you bring a friend to my show? And eventually, if you keep doing that, you'll find that of your community, there are some people who are actually your true fans. They're not just, your mom sending you money because she wants to support you. You know, it's somebody who's like a friend of a friend who's like, hey, I really love your music. Those are the people that you're trying to find, you know? So it's not going to be everyone, and it might not even be the people that you think are going to support your music. But you put yourself out there and get over that hump of it. The more you do it, the more you share what you love to do, and the more you ask for support, the easier it gets.
Yeah, I think for me, it's about sincerity and vulnerability. Someone in the world needs to hear your story because it's their story too, in some way, and it sometimes isn't about skill levels or you know the runs you do or the how long you went to school or you know whatever. It's really just about like being honest about your own experience, because that to me is the most moving thing. You know, it's like, and the most valuable thing. So yeah, that's what I got. Tell your story, I guess.
Let's give it up one more time for these amazing panelists. And if you wanna keep in touch with them, their bios and I think their websites are in their bio. At least their names are in their bio. Are on our website, so you can subscribe to their mailing list. Or if you want to reach out, they probably have contact pages. If you have further questions, and we all 5 of us are based in the Bay Area, and I can tell that this is a crew of folks that wants to lift up other folks, and so. That's just what we're going to keep on doing. Yes.
Thanks, Lisa Forkish.
Thank
you,
you,
Lisa.
You are so welcome.
Thank you, guys.
We have Spotlight. No.